Now, I had to laugh at this headline. In all honesty, it's a stupid headline. It really is stupid. But I think it teaches you an important lesson. Severe rust glazing. And this is just severe rust. It's not calipers seized. 105 metres, 32 metres extra, 100 feet. Hey Siri, what is an everyday object that we'd normally see that is 100 feet high? An everyday object that is around 100 feet high is a standard 10-storey building. 10 stories? Turn your regen off, please. I think the people who this affects and who do what I suggest won't suffer from the problem anymore, and also they'll be a damn sight safer and they'll save money. What's the headline? Share your experiences of car sickness in electric vehicles. When I first looked at it, I thought it was the owners when they realised how much they'd lost by buying one and how much it had depreciated. But no, it's the passengers. It's not just the owners that are sick of EVs, it's the passengers too. And they don't have to pay for the depreciation. They're just getting a lift and they're still not happy. Story by Guardian Community Team. A growing number of studies suggest that people experience more car sickness riding in electric vehicles, EVs, compared to traditional petrol or diesel cars. A 2024 study believes that regenerative braking technology, where the motor converts the slowing car's kinetic energy into electricity that then is stored in the battery, results in low frequency deceleration, meaning that the vehicle slows down gradually and steadily over a relatively long period rather than rapidly or in quick pulses. Such low frequency deceleration tends to be associated with higher levels of motion sickness. Well, no, I don't think that's the case at all. I think that basically when you're accelerating, you do that. As soon as the driver takes his foot off the accelerator, certainly if he's got maximum harvest on and he's trying to get as much regen as possible out of his vehicle, then the car slows down straight away. And you're like this forever. You can't just decelerate slowly. If you did decelerate slowly, then you wouldn't get motion sickness, because that's what you do, or that's what good drivers really do in ICE vehicles. Hypermilers, you look what's ahead of you, and everybody says, oh, you shouldn't take it out of gear, you shouldn't coast. But BMW and Mercedes have actually I mean, Mercedes-Benz, their hybrid, I used one for a while, and I'm not kidding, it went into coast, but it used to go into coast just as you were coming off the motorway at a junction. So you'd actually start slowing down and all of a sudden it would go into coast. And you know, if you'd left it to the last minute, you could almost overshoot the junction because the car started to speed up. Why use your brakes? Why use engine deceleration? Why put strain on your vehicles? Why wear your tyres, your drivetrain, your clutch, your engine mounts, your prop shaft, your diff? Why do that? If there's nothing ahead of you, slow down. Just wind resistance. Let the wind resistance stop you. Why regen? Oh, Baz, regen saves you money. Well, I'm here to tell you that I don't think it does. Because what regen does is stops you using your brakes. Your brakes then rust up, your discs rust up. Sometimes, and well, I say sometimes, I see quite a lot on electric vehicle MOTs, because they rust up, when you do brake, you get uneven braking, and it then grooves your discs. The next thing generates heat, the next thing the discs are warped, and then when you do use your brakes, the steering wheel's all over the place, the wheels are all over the place, because the discs have warped. That's if you're lucky. That's if you're lucky. Yeah, if you're lucky, because then you only need new discs and pads. If you're really unlucky, and you never, ever really need brakes. You're just driving around town, it's raining, your discs go rusty, you never use your calipers, the calipers seize up, you then end up needing brake pads, discs and calipers. Don't believe me? No? Well, have a look at some of the evangelists who go on about how good Regen is, and they tell you that often the discs need changing because they're corroded or warped. Well, that's not a good thing. When do you need Regen? Save you a bit of electricity. When do you need your brakes? When a car's stopped in front of you, when somebody's run out, when the bikes come off the pavement, in an emergency, you need your brakes to be shiny clean and ready to do an emergency stop. Now, I've actually done a bit of research on the distance that rusty discs add to an emergency stop, and it's enough to like run over somebody. Let me put it that way. In fact, it's enough to run over somebody who was yards away from your proper stopping distance with 100% efficient brakes, like you'd have in a nice car, say. Yeah, but I want to save money. Okay. Turn your Regen down. You won't get car sick. Your passengers won't get car sick. It'll cost you a bit more in electricity. If you're one of the ones that puts your family at risk by charging your vehicle overnight while they're all asleep in bed, then you in particularly, don't risk the lives on the road as well. You're doing it overnight while it's charging. Don't risk them on the road. Meet me halfway. Turn your Regen off. Drive around using your brakes, nice clean discs, and perform an emergency stop. If you're one of the ones that has to charge on the motorway, I suppose that's quite a good thing, because if you have to charge on the motorway, then there's a good chance that somebody will pull out in front of you on the motorway and you'll have to use your brakes possibly at least once a day, so they'll be clean. You use Regen a bit because you'll save more. You see, the price you're paying for electricity on the motorway, you'll save more and your discs will be okay. So then it just about makes economic sense, because if you have to pay for new discs, pads and calipers, that amounts to quite a lot of money, especially on one of these big cars. On a Porsche, which car did we have? Cayenne. I think it was £1,000 for new discs. That was just the discs, and then that was without calipers. The calipers would be an absolute fortune. Absolute fortune. So if you charge at home and you're only paying 7p a kilowatt, turn your Regen off. Don't believe me, believe the experts. But here we go. Now the reason I've done it through this is my calculations, my looking on the internet, how much a set of brake pads and discs cost. You get other people, again the evangelists, saying, oh, they're only cheap. Well, honestly, they're not only cheap. How much does regenerative braking save you in electricity over 100,000 miles? The reason I ask that is one of the big evangelists says it's not unusual to see an EV with the original brake discs on at 100,000 miles.
It's not unusual, it happens every day, no matter what you say.
It's not unusual. It seems to be if you look at the MOTs, but anyway, we'll give him the benefit of the doubt. So I've put 100,000 miles because that's what he says. Having said that, I also said that you get 40,000 mile out of a set of tyres, but on one of the MOTs, it said ply cord sticking out of these tyres. So, I mean, I think the bloke's tight enough to peel an orange in his pocket, and I wouldn't take a blind bit of notice of what he says. I like to be safe. I like tread on my tyres, and I like my brakes to work. So how much does regenerative braking save you in electricity over 100,000 miles? Short answer, over 100,000 miles, Regen typically saves 3 to 4 megawatt hours of electricity for a mid-size EV in mixed UK driving, roughly £750 to £1,200 at home tariffs, and more if you rely on rapid public charging. Why the range? Regenerative braking's benefits depends on how often you slow down. Mostly motorway, few stops, 5% energy saving. Mixed UK driving, 10 to 15% saving. I'll use 12% as a realistic midpoint. Mostly city stop go, 20 to 30% saving. Worked examples, 100,000 miles. Assume real world energy use with Regen. Small EV, 240 watt hours per mile, uses 24,000 kilowatt hours. With Regen, savings, motorway, 5%, 1,260 kilowatt hours. Mixed, 12%, 3,270 kilowatt hours. City, 25%, 8,000 kilowatt hours. Mid-sized EV, 280 watt hours per mile, uses 28,000 kilowatt hours with Regen. Savings, motorway 5%, 1,470 kilowatt hours. Mixed 12%, 3,820 kilowatt hours. City 25%, 9,330 kilowatt hours. Large SUV, 360 watt hours per mile, uses 36,000 kilowatt hours with Regen. Savings, motorway 5%, 1,900 kilowatt hours. Mixed 12%, 4,910 kilowatt hours. City 25%, 12,000 kilowatt hours. Pound cost savings rule of thumb at 25 pence per kilowatt hour at home. Mid-size mixed 12%, £950 saved over 100,000 miles. At 15 pence per kilowatt hour off peak, £570 saved over 100,000 miles. At 60 pence per kilowatt hour, that's public rapid. And in my experience, public rapid is a heck of a lot more than that and is somewhere between 80 to 90 pence per kilowatt hour. This shows £2,290, which is very conservative in my opinion. This is where you need to know. If you've got a good charging rate at home, turn your Regen off, because then it's cheaper to charge at home, not save electric by Regen, have your brakes functioning properly, have your family safe in your car, have pedestrians, cyclists, other cars, animals safe on the road, because you know when you hit that brake with all your might, that's going to stop as efficiently as it possibly can. I don't know about you, but if I knock somebody over and I thought I'd knock them over because I was a tight arse and I'd got my Regen on full blast, my discs had gone rusty, my calipers weren't working, my discs were warped, in all honesty, I would think your car is not in a fit state to be on the road. If those conditions are met when you have an accident, then your insurance should be null and void and you should be prosecuted. It's dangerous driving in my book. If you want to work it out yourself, here's a quick formula. Work it out yourself. See if you're better off. See if you're risking other people's lives and your own for nothing. Quick formula. E equals your EV's consumption with Regen, watt hours per mile. P equals expected Regen, benefit as a fraction, e.g. 0.12 for 12%, over 100,000 miles, kilowatt hours saved. That's the calculation there. You know, don't accuse me of using the worst because I've got ChatGPT to do it. Not because I can't do it myself, because I can, because I've done it thousands of times for our vehicles. You know, people who have rusty discs on their car, people who have groove discs on their car, when they come to part exit, won't have them on yours. If you have an advisory on an MOT that you're selling to a customer, they can have 4 advisories on their car. They don't want yours with an advisory on because they don't want to shell out. They won't pay for theirs, but they don't want to have to shell out on a new car that they're buying. So the amount of discs at one place, it was virtually, one place I worked, they used to buy a lot of cars from the auctions, and virtually every disc needed replacing. So much so that we bought a disc lathe, and it was brilliant. It used to cost us about 15p to resurface discs. If you caught the calipers before they seized up, that was brilliant. So that is also a good idea. Right, only cost you 15p. Well, that's great if you've got mechanics. But if you take your vehicle to somebody who's got a brake disc lathe, they've got to take the wheels off, they've got to set it up, and it ends up with not a fantastic amount of saving. You should do it because just think of the metal you're saving. You EVs, you EV people, you want to save metal. RAC estimates, replacing front and rear brake pads, no discs, between £250 to £500 just for the brake pads. Well, that's front and rear. If discs also need replacing, add £150 to £250 for smaller vehicles, or £200 plus for larger ones. Real world examples from Reddit. A Nissan Leaf owner in the UK reported that the dealership quoted $325 fitted for front discs and pads. High-end examples and garage quotes. Some discussion from MGZS EV owners. Now again, one of the EV Angelis with the MG5, say I think they've done 150,000 miles on theirs and it's not needed discs or pads. In this, some discussion from MGZS EV owners mention quotes as high as £1,000 for full discs and pads replacement, front and rear, though those seem upper end or perhaps servicing at premium dealerships or garages. Media survey insights. A survey reported that replacing front and rear brake pads could cost up to £500 for small family cars or over £700 for larger vehicles like SUVs. Brake discs can typically cost up to £250. That's not mentioning calipers. Calipers come into play. It's a whole different ball game. It's a lot of money. The thought I want to leave you with is light regen, good brakes. Light regen, not so much seasickness. Saving money, because this is the thing that I notice when anybody talks about EVs and why they've got one, nobody says, I got it to save the planet. I'm not bothered about money. They all say I'm saving a fortune. They're not saving a fortune because of depreciation, but they convince themselves they are. They're not saving a fortune with regen because they're putting things at risk that, you know, you could never live with yourself. Imagine thinking, just even at the back of your mind, you've had an accident, one of your family members is injured, and if only you turn your regen down, it would never have happened. That's between you and your conscience. But as far as the headline, the seasickness, I do think it's awful. I can't drive with regen on. Not because it makes me seasick, because it doesn't. Because I just don't like the way it drives. It's just not nice. One pedal driving is not a good way to drive. Oh, Baz, you're exaggerating. The problems you pointed out are real. EVs and hybrids do suffer unique brake issues because the friction brakes are used less often. Disc corrosion, rust, moisture plus road salt, less frequent friction contact lets rust build up. Pad glazing, pads can get a thin rust layer that reduces bite until it's scraped off. To be honest, once they're glazed, I don't think it does get scraped off. The only way you can scrape it off is by taking the pads out and actually sanding them, because it doesn't seem to work on discs. I know, I've done it. Warping and uneven deposits. If the discs corrode and are only lightly scrubbed by the pads, it can lead to thickness variation and vibration judder. Caliper slide pin seizing. Lack of movement over time can make calipers stick. Now, that's the slide pins. That's the only thing is, it's not the slide pins you worry about. You grease them fine. It's the pistons. The pistons stop coming out. Then you're knackered. Trust me. Crikey. 40 odd years ago, I had a Honda Gullwing and the caliper seized up on it. It was £360. And it was more than 40 years ago. It was 40, would it be 49 years ago? 49 years ago, the caliper was £360. Longer first stop distances. After heavy rain or sitting, the first brake application may feel weaker until the rust film is burned off. These problems are reported by many EV owners, especially in damp climates like the UK. Where are we? Some manufacturers have had to redesign pads or coating materials to address it. So don't tell me it doesn't happen. Don't tell me it doesn't happen to you. Yours doesn't do it, because it does. Mitigation. What OEMs and owners do. Schedule maintenance. Many OEMs recommend cleaning and lubricating caliper pins annually, but EVs don't need servicing, do they? Toyota hybrids, Tesla brakes, service guidance, etc. Regular brake exercise. Use B mode less often, or occasionally doing a few strong stops. Keep disc clean. One of the evangelists recommends a technique called burnishing. Perhaps going to a local industrial estate and applying your brakes, slamming them on a few times a week. Why would you do that? You know, when was the last time you did that in your diesel? Okay. How do you know that you're going to have to emergency brake after you've been to the industrial estate and after you've burnished your brakes? What happens if somebody runs out in front of you, or pulls out in front of you, or a dog runs out when you're on your way to the industrial estate to do your burnishing? And the even funnier thing is that when I looked up his old MOTs, you guessed it, there was plenty of problems with the brakes on the vehicles he's had. Do as I say, not as I do. That's the evangelist motto. Better coating materials. Some OEMs, e.g. Mercedes EQS, use coated discs to resist rust. Coated discs? So what are they coated with? Grease? Because I got into a bit of a spat with one of the other evangelists about that. I was being sarcastic. Evangelists don't really have a sense of humour. I mean, why would they have? Cost impact versus regen saving. Cost of rectification, front discs and pads, £240 to £270. You see, because the extra servicing and the brake maintenance, that also comes off your regen savings. Front discs and pads, £240 to £270 per axle, as we just discussed. If you have to do this every 2 to 3 years instead of every 5 to 7 years, you might spend an extra £500 to £700. You might spend an extra £500 to £700 over 100,000 miles. I think you'd spend more. If calipers seize and need replacement, add £300 to £500 per corner, but that's not guaranteed. Many last fine with proper servicing. Many last fine with proper servicing, but it doesn't say they last fine without proper servicing. So you're kind of reading between the lines here. Energy saving from Regen. Mixed driving, 750 to 1200. 100,000 miles, home charging prices. City, heavy savings can exceed 2,000, plus you avoid extra brake dust pollution. You avoid brake dust pollution, but what you don't avoid is iron oxide pollution, because when your discs rust, that's iron oxide. When you brake, it gets rid of that. You look at EVs, you look at EV brake discs, look at the wheels on EVs. Next time you go past one, look at the wheels coated in rust. That's iron oxide. Iron oxide causes irreparable lung damage. So financially, Regen is still net positive for most drivers, but not by a huge margin if you completely neglect brake maintenance and then need a full caliper disc pad overhaul. The risk of longer stopping distance is genuine if brakes are badly rusted or seized. That's why some EVs automatically apply the brakes lightly during regen or after washing to keep them dry. I think from memory, the Vauxhall Carlton, when that came out, if you went through water, it used to judder the brake pads to dry the discs. Long time ago. But the vehicles that they say this applies to, when you go on the internet and you look at the wheels, the brakes, it doesn't seem to do a good job. Owners are encouraged to occasionally use friction brakes manually. If an EV's discs are warped or corroded badly enough to shake the steering wheel, that's already a fault condition. It should be serviced just like worn pads on any ICE car. A lot of EV owners just do 3 to 4 strong stops from 40 to 50 miles per hour once a week on a safe road, in brackets, to keep discs shiny. It costs pennies in energy but saves hundreds on premature disc pads replacement and keeps emergency braking performance strong. I would say it puts more wear and strain onto your vehicle, tyres and your running gear. There's the EV brake care guide, bit easier to understand. How brake issues impact emergency stopping distance, service rust, corrosion on discs. Rust that builds up on brake discs due to infrequent use can reduce the effective friction between discs and pads, leading to vibrations, noise and degraded brake performance. In severe cases, it can compromise disc integrity and increase stopping distances. Uneven disc geometry and cold judder. Non-uniform rusting creates variations in disc thickness grooves, sometimes called cold judder, which causes vibration, squealing and uneven braking, reducing reliability during emergency stops. Pad glazing and corrosion. Brake pads that don't get used often can develop a glaze surface or corrode, which reduces their ability to grip the rotor effectively. This lowers friction efficiency, increases stopping distance and diminishes braking reliability in emergencies. Sticking or, I'm speeding up here because this video is going to be quite long and I don't want it to be. I don't want people to turn off before they realise the danger they're putting themselves in. Sticking or seizing calipers. Infrequent use can lead to seized or sticking calipers, forcing prolonged contact or failure to release properly. This not only reduces braking performance, but may also result in overheating, uneven wear and inconsistent stopping distances. It actually can, in really bad, where the brake sticks on and it's on the disc gets red hot, it can actually cause a fire. And you don't want a fire on an EV. That's the last thing you want. Delayed brake engagement. With heavy reliance on regenerative brakes, friction brakes may not engage immediately in an emergency, especially if the discs are rusty or the pads glazed, further delaying effective stopping action. Real world insight from EV owners forums. Our Ioniq 5 said something about turning the regen to level 0 off and making 10 stops to keep the brakes clean. If you let rust accumulate, the first stop feels weak until the layer is worn off. Summary, bottom line, these issues can significantly increase emergency stopping distance in EVs if the friction brakes aren't periodically exercised or maintained. The first application of the brakes after a period of inactivity, especially in wet or salty conditions, can feel weak or uneven until rust is scrubbed off and surface is refreshed. Clean brakes, 60 to 0. Emergency stopping distance effect of EV brakes, rusty and glazing. Clean brakes 73 meters from 60 miles an hour. Mild rust, just mild rust. That's 15 metres. 15 metres. 45 feet, more than 45 feet. Imagine 45 feet between you and an accident. It's not just that. Imagine if you have an accident and you were going to stop 45 feet further down the road. That's 45 feet of distance you haven't scrubbed off, which means you're travelling a lot faster than you would have been when you had the accident in the first place. It doesn't mean you just have an accident. It means you're going to do more damage, and while you're doing the damage, it's going to hurt. Severe rust glazing. And this is just severe rust. It's not calipers seized. 105 metres. 105 metres. 32 metres extra. 100 feet. Hey Siri, what is an everyday object that we'd normally see that is 100 feet high? An everyday object that is around 100 feet high is a standard 10-storey building. 10 stories? Additionally, many large trees such as mature oak or redwood trees can reach this height. Some large industrial chimneys or cell phone towers are also around 100 feet tall. Turn your regen off, please. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Bye bye.